Fortnite. I don't really have a better intro. You obviously know what it is, how it's taken the gaming world by storm, and you probably already have an opinion on it that I'm not going to try to change. But regardless of how much you do or don't like the gameplay, Fortnite is a very interesting game when it comes to cross-play and cross-progression. Be honest, did you ever think the day would come when you and your friends could use a phone, Switch, and PC to play together in the same match? That's incredibly impressive, and it makes sense why Epic has spent so much time optimizing Fortnite to run on pretty much anything with an operating system. I did a short test of Fortnite during the Xbox One X vs Potato Masher Pro launch video, but the game has been optimized further since then, and it deserves a second look on both of my testing PCs. This video is going to focus on the experience of playing Fortnite on a cheap PC versus a PS4. For the PS4 version, Epic has targeted 1080p and 60 FPS. The PS4 version performed significantly better than it did at launch, and I'd say the 60 FPS target is right more often than not. Almost all multiplayer games have occasional frame rate hitches due to the complexity of managing that many players and a large map, but both the Masher and PS4 appear to be 60 FPS often enough that I'd consider this to be a real 60 FPS experience. That standard is a little higher for single-player games, but for multiplayer they're both doing great. Here I have the Masher running at 1080p and 60 FPS with a custom blend of high settings, and that's running on an i5-750 and a GTX 760. The only setting that's noticeably lower than high is shadow quality. That setting significantly affects the frame rate, so for competitive play it was worth reducing. Fittingly, that provides the biggest visual difference between the Masher and PS4. While both platforms show shadows fading in as the player gets closer to the ground or faraway objects, the Masher has the fade in happening closer to the player in my experience, so it appears to be running at one setting lower than the PS4. Besides that, everything else is either identical or close enough to identical that the average user won't notice. Most of that credit goes to the art style. Much in the same way that Team Fortress 2 and Overwatch rely on an art style that prioritizes art design over the highest fidelity textures or character models, Fortnite uses its cartoony art style to maintain consistency across the different graphical levels. So the textures may never look amazing, but they don't ever look terrible. The same goes for lighting, models, etc. Shadows do noticeably pop in at lower settings, as you can see, but since the game map is huge and they affect performance that much, I think it's the right call. The changing times of day and weather do affect how good the game looks, probably more than any single setting. The golden hour or sunrise can look downright impressive, while midday or nighttime just look average. The biggest differences I saw between the platforms could more easily be chalked up to the time of day than anything else. However, that's assuming both platforms are running at the same resolution and frame rate. Now, the Masher CPU isn't fast enough to get consistent significant gains above 60 FPS. It'll burst up to 80 FPS or so in some situations, but not often enough that makes a real difference. But what about different resolutions? Remember I said this game was well optimized? Well, a few resolution combinations make sense. 1440p and the same high settings at 30 FPS is no big deal. The game's a bit sharper, which is nice, but the main improvement is a reduction in aliasing shimmer at medium to far distances. When you're trying to spot enemies, that actually can make a decent difference. Most competitive shooters don't feel great at 30 FPS, but depending on your playstyle, this might not be that bad. However, dropping the settings to medium and 60 FPS is very achievable. I did have an odd bug happen where if VSync was enabled, the frame rate would automatically drop to 30. That's normal when the PC can't maintain 60, but as you can see there's plenty of GPU headroom, so I ran without VSync. I hate screen tearing, but it wasn't too bad. I didn't have this problem at 1440p on the Masher Pro, so I'm guessing it's just a weird bug with this combination of hardware. Ignoring that, this looks a little better than the settings I used for 1080p and 60 FPS, but only because of the increase in sharpness. If you have a 1440p monitor, the Masher's GTX 760 does a respectable job. If you have a 1080p monitor, I'd probably just keep the higher settings and stick to 1080p. However, we're not done yet. That's right, as rare as it is these days, the Masher can play Fortnite at 4K. Well, not native 4K at decent settings. It can technically do native 4K at low settings, but I went with 80% resolution scaling or about 1800p at medium settings and 30 FPS. It looks good. Again, I wouldn't recommend playing a game like this at 30 FPS, but if that doesn't bother you, this is stinking sharp for an old cheap computer. And as you'll see in my Masher Pro video, native 4K and 1800p aren't all that different from each other in this game, given the art style. You're getting most of the benefits of true 4K at playable settings. At 1080p, the Masher and PS4 are essentially identical. The PS4 has a lead in shadows, but that's about it. The Masher has the flexibility to look good on 1440p and even 4K monitors, so in that sense it wins over the PS4. However, the bigger reason most people would probably choose the PC over the PS4 is crossplay, which has been discussed to death, and you all don't need to hear my opinions on that. Suffice it to say, if you owned both the PS4 and the Masher, or were considering getting one or the other, I'd only get a PS4 if all of your friends play Fortnite exclusively on PlayStation. A big thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon. Check out the Potato Masher Pro and the Xbox One X playing Fortnite. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video, and let's continue the conversation down in the comments. Have a great day.